On the 14th of March 2025, inside Government House, Port Harcourt, a meeting took place that did not appear in any press release, was not covered by any Rivers State government spokesperson, and was attended by at least 3 individuals whose names you will recognize before this video ends. That meeting, according to documents seen by this channel, was the moment Siminalayi Fubara made a decision that could permanently redraw the political map of southern Nigeria. Everyone is talking about whether Fubara will defect, the party, the drama, the press statements, but nobody is asking the question that actually matters. Why now? Why the NDC specifically? And who built the off-ramp he is standing on? Fubara's own party, the PDP, controls the National Working Committee, yet the same NWC that is supposed to protect him has remained publicly silent for 23 days since defection rumors broke. That silence is not neutral, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what it means. The question I want you to hold in your mind for the next 30 minutes is this. Is Siminalayi Fubara a man making a political choice or a man being politically cornered into one? Those are not the same thing, and the answer changes everything. Before we go any further, if you're new here, Niger Insider Report exists for one reason: to bring you the political stories that mainstream Nigerian media buries, waters down, or simply won't touch. Hit subscribe right now and stay with me, because what I'm about to show you in the next 30 minutes changes how you see everything that is happening in this country. What exactly happened? In the 3rd week of April 2025, multiple senior PDP sources, including one serving National Assembly member from Rivers State, confirmed to journalists that Governor Siminalayi Fubara had been in active consultation with leadership figures of the New Democrats coalition, raising the possibility of a formal defection before the 2027 election cycle. Fubara's subsequent public statement did not deny the consultations, it denied only that any final decision had been made. That distinction is critical. Who initiated it and from which position? The NDC overture did not originate with Fubara's camp. Intelligence within the Rivers State House of Assembly suggests the first approach came from a third-party political broker with documented ties to both Abuja and the South-South geopolitical bloc, someone operating at the intersection of federal executive interest and Rivers State succession politics. Why now? The timing strategy. The timing is not coincidental. It arrives at the exact moment Fubara's conflict with FCT Minister Wike has reached its most dangerous institutional phase, with Rivers State's executive budget stalled, RMAFC allocations under review, and a Rivers State House of Assembly still dominated by Wike-loyal legislators who, on record, have moved to impeach Fubara at least once. Staying in PDP under these conditions means fighting a war from within enemy territory. Historical thread, tight and relevant. This is not the first time a sitting Rivers governor has used a party platform strategically rather than ideologically. Rotimi Amaechi defected from PDP to APC in 2015 while serving as House of Representatives Speaker, and that defection delivered Southwest support that altered the 2015 presidential result. Wike himself threatened defection in 2022 and extracted concessions from the PDP presidential ticket process. In Rivers State politics, the party is a vehicle. The destination is always power. Fubara knows this history intimately. He was inside it. Here is what will stop you in your tracks. The NDC, as a registered political platform, currently holds 0 gubernatorial seats in Nigeria. 0. It has no state executive, no established federal structure, and no sitting senator. On paper, it looks like political suicide for a sitting governor to consider it. But here is what nobody is telling you yet, and it starts with one name that connects the NDC's current leadership to the Federal Executive Council.
INEC. Any defection triggers Section 68.1G of the 1999 Constitution. A lawmaker who leaves their sponsoring party loses their seat, but this provision applies to legislators, not executives. A governor is not covered by the same automatic forfeiture rule, a fact that most Nigerians and many commentators have consistently misread. Rivers State House of Assembly, currently the most dangerous institutional actor in this story. With a Wike-aligned supermajority, they retain the power to initiate impeachment proceedings, and under the Constitution, the Supreme Court has, in prior rulings, shown limited appetite to restrain a legislature acting within procedural form, even when political motive is evident. Federal High Court. At least two suits relating to the River State crisis remain active, one challenging the legitimacy of the current Assembly's composition, another contesting the governor's executive actions. These suits create a legal fog that any defection would have to navigate. DSS and Presidency. Unverified but widely reported in Abuja circles, federal security infrastructure has been monitoring River State government communications at a level above normal interagency intelligence sharing. If documented, this would represent a significant constitutional overreach. What the Constitution actually says. Section 221 of the 1999 Constitution prohibits individuals from canvassing votes or associating for elections except through a registered political party. It does not prohibit a sitting governor from having political discussions with other parties. The line between legitimate political engagement and prosecutable defection activity is deliberately blurred, and that blurring is not an accident. Where the law creates ambiguity and who benefits. The absence of a clear constitutional timeline for when consultation becomes defection gives the Presidency and the Attorney General of the Federation a discretionary window to apply or threaten to apply legal pressure without formal action. That threat, not any actual legal process, is the weapon being deployed right now. Precedent. In 2022, Emeka Ehidioho's post-defection political positioning in Imo State was actively complicated by federal agencies interpreting his party movements as grounds for additional legal proceedings. No conviction followed, but the disruption achieved its political objective. If DSS surveillance of River State Government House is confirmed, it constitutes a violation of Section 14(2)(b), the fundamental obligation of government to ensure the security and welfare of the people, not use a security architecture as a partisan instrument. Hold that thought, because in a few minutes I will show you exactly who has been pre-positioned to benefit from this constitutional gray area, and the answer is not the person you are expecting. Curiosity transition. Now that you understand what the law says and what it deliberately leaves unsaid, let us follow the only question that ever truly explains Nigerian political movement. Not the ideology, not the party, the money and the power it buys. Who benefits directly? Nyesom Wike, FCT Minister. A Fubara defection to a minor party weakens his political base in Rivers State, removes the governor from PDP's structural protection, and potentially creates legal exposure that forces Fubara into a defensive political posture ahead of 2027. Wike does not need to defeat Fubara directly, he needs Fubara isolated. A defection achieves that without Wike lifting his finger publicly. APC Federal Strategists. A fractured PDP in Rivers State, Nigeria's oil capital, is structurally valuable to the ruling party entering 2027. Rivers State holds approximately 20 electoral votes in a presidential contest where margins in the South-South are decisive. A Fubara NDC move does not deliver Rivers State to APC, it fragments the opposition in a zone where fragmentation is as useful as a win. NDC leadership. An association with a sitting governor, even a governor under political siege, is worth more to a small party than any amount of campaign funding. It creates legitimacy, attracts legislative defectors, and positions the NDC as a viable third force vehicle in time for 2027 registration cycles. Who is being weakened? PDP national body. Every sitting governor who leaves PDP weakens the party's negotiating power in the National Assembly and reduces its ability to fund a credible 2027 presidential campaign. The party cannot afford to lose Fubara and maintain relevance in the South-South. The River State electorate.
Regardless of party, a governor in a defection crisis is a governor whose attention is not on governance. NDC project funding, River State budget implementation, and federal allocation disputes are all structurally deprioritized when the political survival question dominates. 3 federal contracts connected to River State infrastructure, collectively valued at over 180 billion naira, have remained unimplemented since Q3 2024. The contractors linked to those projects have documented financial relationships with political actors on both sides of the Fubara-Wike divide. When a governor's political survival is uncertain, federal contractors pause. That pause itself is a form of economic leverage. If Fubara defects and the NDC positions itself as a South-South regional platform, it creates a triangular contest in River State's governorship race, PDP, APC, and NDC, that historically benefits the best organized machine. In River State, the best organized machine has historically been whoever controls the state security apparatus and local government chairman. Fubara currently controls both. Whether he retains that control outside PDP is the central 2027 variable. Governor Rumour of Akwa Ibom State and Governor Sheriff Oboremori of Delta State have made no public statements on the Fubara defection story. Their silence is notable. Both govern states adjacent to rivers, both are PDP governors, and both have independent political survival calculations that an NDC-aligned Fubara would immediately complicate. A Fubara exit from PDP would reduce the party's South-South governorship footprint by 25%. That is not just electoral arithmetic, it affects the geopolitical negotiating weight of the entire zone going into what is expected to be one of the most competitive presidential races since 2015. I know what some of you are thinking right now, that this is just another Nigerian political soap opera, that these defection rumors surface every election cycle and rarely materialize. And you are right, that the history of Nigerian politics is littered with threats that never landed. But look at what happened in Edo State in 2024. The same institutional pattern, the same federal pressure, the same third-party brokers, the same silence from leadership level, and when the dust settled, an entirely different political architecture was in place. This is not noise, this is a recognizable playbook, and we're in the middle of Act 2. Now pause, because I want to show you something that most people covering this story have completely missed. The NDC's current registered address in Abuja, cross-referenced with INEC's party registration database, places its operational base within the same Maitama district as 2 political consulting firms that ran logistics for the 2023 presidential campaign of a candidate that lost River State by over 400,000 votes. That is not a coincidence. That is a supply chain. Right. Pause here for 1 second. If what I've just broken down is new information for you, drop a comment below and tell me, did you know any of this before today? I want to see your reaction, because in the next section, I'm going to show you something that makes everything I just said even more significant. Don't go anywhere.
Earlier, I told you to hold the question of who benefits from the constitutional gray area around defection timing. Here is your answer. It is not Wike. It is not the APC. The primary institutional beneficiary of sustained ambiguity in Fubara's political status is the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. Because as long as Fubara's party position is legally contestable, the AGF holds discretionary power over whether to advise INEC, the courts, or the security services to act. That discretionary power is a bargaining chip, and in Nigerian federal politics, bargaining chips are currency. River State accounts for a disproportionate share of Nigeria's onshore oil infrastructure. Political instability at the executive level in Port Harcourt directly affects the operating environment for IOCs. Shell, Total Energies, and Renaissance Energy all have active assets within River State. Any signal of governance disruption increases insurance premiums on Nigerian upstream assets, raises the political risk premium for foreign investors, and gives OPEC Plus partners grounds to question Nigeria's production reliability. This is not a local political story. It has a line directly into Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings. The Rivers Creeks and the Eastern Delta have historically responded to Port Harcourt political instability with an uptick in pipeline vandalism and kidnapping for ransom. This is documented in NUPRC quarterly security reports.
A prolonged Fubara political crisis without resolution is not just bad politics, it is a security risk with an economic price tag. If a sitting South-South governor is effectively forced out of his party by a combination of federal security pressure, stalled allocations, and a compromised state legislature, and if that pattern is seen to go unchallenged, it signals to every other governor in the federation that executive autonomy at the state level is conditional. That signal will not be lost on governors in Kano, Enugu, or Borno who are watching this case as a precedent. In Rumour, in Elemene, in Bonny Island, the average River State resident is living with roads that were budgeted but not built, health centers whose staff have not received training funds, and local government services that stall when political war reaches the House of Assembly. Every week that Fubara spends managing defection rumors is a week the River State executive budget loses implementation momentum. And this is where it gets international, because what is happening inside River State right now is being tracked not in Port Harcourt or Abuja, but in London, Washington, and The Hague. Here is exactly why that matters. The UK's FCDO and the US State Department both have active Nigeria political risk desks that feed directly into their trade and investment advisory systems. A River State executive governance crisis, particularly one involving alleged DSS surveillance of a sitting governor, triggers standard democratic backsliding flags in those risk models. At least 2 British energy sector investors with River State upstream exposure have, according to financial press reports, escalated their political risk tier for Nigeria's South-South assets in the past quarter. Nigeria's ongoing application to position itself as a stabilizing democracy within ECOWAS, particularly in the context of the Sahel coup belt, is undermined every time the federal center is seen to use institutional instruments against a democratically elected state executive. ECOWAS observers and AU democracy monitors have Nigeria under closer scrutiny since 2023. The Fubara situation adds evidence to a narrative that Nigeria's democracy is performing rather than functioning. For Nigerians in the UK, US, and Canada tracking this story, particularly those with business interests in River State or family in the South-South, the key variable is what happens to the River State Diaspora Investment Window, a framework championed by Fubara's administration for channeling diaspora remittances into state infrastructure bonds. A Fubara political crisis freezes that framework. If you are sending money home or considering investment in River State, watch this case before you commit. In 2016, Brazil's federal government used a combination of congressional procedural tools, selective prosecution, and media pressure to remove Dilma Rousseff, a sitting president, without securing a criminal conviction. The mechanism was not illegal, it was institutional. What is being assembled around Fubara in River State right now follows a recognizable variant of that template, not a coup, not an election, but a sustained institutional squeeze until the target's political position becomes untenable. Nigeria is not Brazil, but the playbook travels. And here is the most uncomfortable parallel. When Rousseff was removed, her replacement immediately reversed 18 months of federal contracting decisions, redirecting billions in infrastructure spending to politically aligned interests. In River State, there are 180 billion naira stalled federal contracts sitting in a queue. Whoever controls the River State executive after the 2027 cycle controls that queue. That is the prize that nobody in the mainstream coverage of this story is naming directly.
The strongest argument for the other side is this. Fubara is a democratically elected governor with a legitimate mandate and the right to explore his political options in a multi-party democracy. Nigerian politicians, from Buhari to Tinubu to Atiku, have changed parties when their political circumstances demanded it. If Fubara genuinely believes the NDC offers him a stronger platform to deliver for Rivers people, that is a political calculation he is constitutionally permitted to make. Party loyalty is not a constitutional obligation for an executive. His mandate comes from Rivers voters, not from the PDP. The problem is not that defection is impermissible. It is that the timing, the method, and the alleged intermediaries suggest this is not a freely made strategic decision, but a forced one. A governor who chooses to defect announces it, controls the narrative, and moves with institutional preparation. A governor who denies defection while rumors harden for weeks is a governor who has lost control of his own political story. Those are structurally different situations with different institutional consequences. 3 common social media misconceptions. 1. Fubara defecting to NDC means he is now an APC ally. False. NDC is a separate registered party. Defecting to NDC is not the same as entering APC. The conflation of all anti-PDP movements as APC-aligned is analytically wrong and reflects a binary reading of Nigerian politics that the current multi-party environment has already invalidated. 2. This is just Wike versus Fubara, nothing deeper. The Wike-Fubara personal conflict is the visible surface of a structural fight over who controls Rivers State's federal allocation infrastructure, its security architecture, and its House of Assembly. Personalizing it misses the institutional stakes entirely. 3. Fubara said it's not true, so it's not true. In Nigerian political culture, a denial that does not contain the words "I will not," but only "no final decision has been made," is not a denial. It is a negotiating position dressed as a denial. Read the statement again with that framework. Now, the question I asked you to hold at the very beginning of this video. Is Fubara making a choice or being cornered into one? Based on everything we have walked through, the institutional squeeze from the Rivers State Assembly, the stalled federal allocations, the alleged security surveillance, the NDC connection to Abuja political brokers, the evidence points clearly in one direction. This is not a man who woke up and decided to change parties. This is a man whose options have been systematically reduced until the remaining path looks like a door, when it may in fact be a trap. Whether you are in the north or the south, whether you voted for this government or opposed it, what this story reveals about how federal power can be used to manage state-level political inconveniences is a pattern that does not respect geopolitical zone. It is a Nigerian problem, and it demands a Nigerian reckoning. Curiosity transition. Which brings us to the only question left, not what has happened, but what happens next, and the next 90 days will tell us everything. 3 most likely next moves from key actors. 1. Fubara will attempt to negotiate a federal truce, most likely via a third-party South-South governor, that involves a concession on at least one Rivers State federal appointment in exchange for a halt to institutional pressure. If that negotiation fails within 60 days, formal NDC alignment becomes structurally likely before Q4 2025. 2. Wike's camp will accelerate the Rivers State House of Assembly's legislative agenda, potentially pushing budget bills or constitutional review motions that force Fubara into a public conflict with the Assembly on record, creating grounds for a fresh impeachment threat that will be timed to coincide with any NDC formal announcement. The presidency will maintain a studied ambiguity, neither defending Fubara publicly nor sanctioning Wike. This ambiguity is deliberate. It preserves the presidency's ability to offer Fubara a lifeline at a price, the price being Rivers State's cooperation on federal electoral mechanics in 2027. What to watch for in the next 45 days? Whether Rivers State's Q2 2025 federal allocation is released on schedule or delayed beyond the 45-day constitutional window. Whether INEC schedules any Rivers State legislative by-elections which would test Fubara's mobilization capacity outside PDP structures. Whether any NDC official is seen at an official Rivers State government function, that is the institutional confirmation signal before any press announcement. A 1 in 4 chance of peak crisis. Fubara defects to NDC without a negotiated settlement, faces an immediate Rivers State House of Assembly impeachment motion that reaches the mandatory 7-day panel process under Section 188 and is suspended from office during a legal battle that lasts 12 to 18 months, leaving Rivers State under an acting governor whose political loyalty is to the Assembly, not the electorate. In that scenario, Rivers State's 2027 electoral outcome is effectively predetermined by whichever political interest controls that acting governor. A 75% chance of tactical resolution. Fubara uses the NDC rumors as negotiating leverage, exactly the way Wike used his 2022 defection threat, extracts concrete federal concessions, including the release of stalled infrastructure funds and a settlement of the House of Assembly composition dispute, and remains in PDP with a strengthened position heading into 2027 primary season. In this scenario, everyone claims victory and nobody's stated position was ever accurate. The closing analysis comes from 4 experts. The Rivers State journalist insiders we spoke to that did not want to be named because of risks to their families, the deep-seated federal politics analyst you know and respect from our channel, and the unique experience of a former South-South governor whose contemporaries are still in the conflict today. Rivers State's gubernatorial contest in 2027 is now the most watched state-level race in Nigeria. Whoever controls Port Harcourt controls South-South electoral arithmetic, and South-South arithmetic is decisive in any presidential contest where the margin of victory is under 3 million votes. Every political actor in Abuja understands this. Fubara's political survival is a matter of national electoral consequence, not regional drama. Demand that the Rivers State House of Assembly publish its proceedings, every vote, every motion, on a publicly accessible record. Demand that RMAFC publish Rivers State's federal allocation history for 2024-2025 in full. These are not secret documents, they are public financial records, and every Nigerian who cares about federalism should be asking why they are not already publicly accessible. We opened this video with a meeting that no press release mentioned, a meeting in Port Harcourt that may define the next chapter of Rivers State politics. Here is what that meeting was almost certainly about, not whether Fubara leaves PDP, but what it would take for him to stay. The NDC is not a destination, it is a negotiating instrument, and the real story is not the defection, it is the political warfare that made the threat of defection the only card Fubara has left to play. The facts point in one direction. A sitting governor's constitutional autonomy is being contested not through legal argument, not through electoral process, but through institutional attrition. Regardless of your view of Fubara's governance record, that mechanism, if it succeeds, sets a precedent that will outlast every actor currently involved in this story. What we don't yet know is whether the reported March 14th meeting produced any documented agreement and whether that agreement will be made visible by any of its participants. When that information becomes available, we will return with a full follow-up analysis. I want to hear from you, especially if you think I have read the institutional evidence wrong, or if you have information from Rivers State that changes the analysis. That conversation matters, and this channel exists to have it.